Good evening and welcome to the Silicon Valley Entrepreneur, a series of conversations with startup founders and the investors who fund them. I'm Chris Gill, CEO of SVForum, the largest and fastest growing organization for entrepreneurs and technologists in Silicon Valley. Tonight, I'm delighted to have with us one of our board members, Debra Magid.
Thank you.
Who is the Director of Software Strategy for IBM Ventures, and recently went to a program that IBM sponsors,
Yes.
the IBM Smart Camp. And I was absolutely knocked out by the companies you had there and the people you gathered around them. So I thought it was appropriate to invite you along to tell us a little bit about this. So before we go into that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at IBM Ventures?
Sure. Venture capital is maybe a broadly used terms in my world. We started this group many years ago, and if you like, we can talk about how that happened later.
Okay.
But we have a strategic and relationship function. So my job on behalf of the software business is to handle our relationships with investors all around the world and with the companies they fund. So both the venture capitalists and the entrepreneurs. Unlike some corporate venture funds, we don't put money into the startups. We don't take equity. We have a different way of making them successful.
Okay. And is that where the Smart Camp concept came from?
Of course. My colleague Martin Kelly in Ireland and I had both been all over the world acting as judges, participating in business plan competitions for various organizations. And we had been at an event called Seed Camp in London, which you may know of.
Yeah.
You've probably been there yourself. And we thought, well, that was really interesting. We liked the way it was run. We liked the entrepreneurs we had met from all across Europe. But we thought, what if we did something like that on an IBM theme? So then we thought of the SMART for smarter planet, smart cities, smart commerce, smart this and that.
Well, tell us a bit more about that, because that doesn't, why would IBM get into that?
Well, part of the reason that we formed this venture group in the first place was to be a better part of the ecosystem. Back in the 90s, we were pretty disconnected from tech in the Valley and elsewhere in terms of where money was going and what startups were doing. That's the engine for growth in our industry, and we were this big corporate entity that they had no connection with. So, we've done various things like form the venture group, like make startup companies very good business partners. We've bought some of them. We've done various things to be closer to the entrepreneurial community and ecosystem, and Smart Camp was a recent way of even expanding that further.
Okay, but you're centered, or your offices are here in Silicon Valley, so you're in the highest...
we were in the heart of everything.
You're in the highest concentration of entrepreneurs in the world. But all the teams that I saw at the Smart Camp had come from other countries.
That's right.
So what was the reason for reaching out to other countries and getting them involved in it?
Well, we're a global business.
Okay.
We're a completely global business. We have probably, I hope I don't get this wrong, we have 75 or more software development labs in different places around the world. Some critical mass of people building stuff. And so we have this connection to clients, to entrepreneurs, to developers in many different places. And if you look around the world, there are places where those communities are becoming more and more energetic. So if you look at Eastern Europe, or if you look at Istanbul and Turkey, if you look at Brazil, these are places that were not traditionally thought of by people here in the Valley as hotbeds of entrepreneurship and new ideas and innovation, but they are now especially. And so part of the motivation here was to support some major markets like New York and London, but also support people in emerging markets like Turkey and Brazil.
Okay, so having seen the example of Seed Camp, what did you do to get Smart Camp going, and what's the process for startup companies to get involved in it?
Well, it's the internet age, so it's all online.
Okay.
We advertised it online. Well, we did reach out through our networks and say,
Right.
tell your friends about this. Tell the companies you've funded or companies you know about to apply. But we have an online application process, and we've used social media quite a lot to do this. The very first Smart Camp, because Martin is in Dublin, Ireland,
Right.
was in Dublin, Ireland.
Yeah.
He had an ecosystem there himself. He had a nice network with city government and other entrepreneurs and VCs, and so did his colleagues. And the first one was done in November of 2009 as an experiment. It was wildly successful. So it was clear to us that it would not be the last one, and we started immediately planning them for other cities. We did Boston and Silicon Valley that first year, so we did have a smart camp here.
Okay.
And that was when Streetline and CareCloud both won in Silicon Valley.
So you're doing this on a global basis. How many startups did you find submitted into the process?
1,000.
1,000.
Now,
Okay.
I did not have to go through 1,000 applications because one of the things that makes a program like this successful is having a local team in each place who is going to continue to work with these people. It doesn't do any good if some gal from Silicon Valley blows into Istanbul and then leaves.
Yep.
So, right? That would be very sad. So and I will be back there. But my colleague, Jaleh, who lives there, is the one who planned the Smart Camp there. And she solicited applications from that community. She got applications from Egypt and other places in the Middle East, from Turkey, from Eastern Europe, and those people came to the event. But she and her team went through the few hundred applications they had there. So in each place there were 50, 100, 200, 300 applications that were screened. And you have to. It's just like in venture capital when you're a VC and you get all these business plans. It's a funnel. You start knocking some of them out. You have some that you want to look at further. We narrowed in each place. We narrowed it down to about 20. Videotaped them. Had a panel of judges look at those. Narrowed it down to 10. Then it got unbelievably painful. We narrowed it down to 5.
Right. Okay. And certainly so.
And so the 5 went to the event and got the coaching like you did.
Okay. And what's the expectation of what you get? I mean, I saw some stuff there that I thought was hugely valuable, but what is the expectation from the people submitting? What do they get if they get into being the top 5 or the winner or something?
So did you notice there were 20, 30, 40 members of the press and the analyst community in that audience?
I mean, the stuff
they get that right away.
And it doesn't matter what else you've got. You've got
They get that.
introductions to a bunch of investors,
They got
a bunch
tweeted.
of entrepreneurs, they got a bunch of bloggers, I mean, it's just
Now, I will tell you, I sent out a thank you note, which you probably got today before you came here. You're very welcome. I sent a thank you note to all of the mentors, and I've already had people write back asking for the entrepreneurs' addresses. Some of them already had them. A number of people who came to the event, as investors, as members of the industry, have already followed up with a number of these people. Yeah. So they're getting these connections. Certainly, we're already doing business ourselves with some of them. So like BitCarrier, we're doing a project in Helsinki with them on traffic management for the city of Helsinki. So, there are things that we can do to help make people successful in the market, but they also get all these connections and all the exposure.
Which is hugely valuable. And the types of people and the seniority of the people that you'd involved as mentors was, you had, the horsepower in that room as mentors was phenomenal.
Thank you.
Absolutely phenomenal. It wouldn't, people who get funded in Silicon Valley couldn't have got access to some of those people.
No, that's true. That's actually very true. I've had this job since 2001 part-time and since 2003 full-time, and I've developed a network. And there are ways you can do this. You've done the same thing. The first few investors I met who I liked, I asked them who they liked. And so I built a network of people I respect, have a good rapport with, and think are talented. And so I personally invited those mentors to that event. Right. And most of the people I invited said yes. The only ones who didn't say yes, out of town, out of the country, wife is ill, they're very committed. And all of the follow-up has been, we loved the entrepreneurs, we're following up with them. They said it was fun. I thought it was fun. You sounded like you had fun.
Yeah, we had great fun.
Yeah.
We had terrific fun. Yeah. So we were wondering, so it was 5 or 6 teams who were there, and there were 5 of us
on each
going
team.
around to mentor. So in total,
they got mentored by almost 40 people altogether.
Huge number of people to go around. And I had 3 VCs and an angel. There's a terrific mix of people, all of whom had got operating experience.
Yes, exactly.
As well. They'd all run companies before. But just if you had nothing else but made contact with those 40 people,
I know.
Hugely powerful.
Yes.
Hugely
It's
powerful.
funny. We had a master class on Tuesday, so a more private session with people like Bill Reichert and Pramod Haq. Let's see, we had Mark Gormberg, Mark Fernandez from Sierra. We had Don Wood from DFJ. So we had those people in the room to, act as a panel or give a talk and coach the startups in a more private setting. And I won't name names, but one of the guys went online half an hour before that event and started reading bios. This guy's been on the Forbes Midas list. And
right.
It just completely freaked out.
I'm sure it did. Because
so
then
it's
you
like
wow,
wonderful
we're getting
and
these people.
scary.
Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed about all the teams, while they had different areas they were approaching, at the end, if you dug down into it, it was all about analyzing big data.
Absolutely.
Was that a
deliberate
a deliberate theme?
Yes.
Okay, tell us more about that.
Yeah. Well, the way we think about Smarter Planet is you are applying intelligence to the world that you live in. It could be something that a retailer does. It could be something that a city does with its streets. It could be something that a water authority does with the water. But it could be what you do with the lighting in this building. But in all cases, you're using information that's being collected in some way through devices, through phones, through the internet. You're collecting information, and then you're making sense of it. So this is what we call, deriving insight from information. It's all about the intelligence in it. That's why it's Smart Planet or Smart City or Smart Commerce, because it's not just about the data, it's the sense you make of it and the use to which you put it. And that was very deliberate. Every single that was actually on the application forms.
Oh, okay.
And so every company that was selected was deliberately selected to have some aspect of that underneath, even though they were in all different sectors and all different kinds of companies from all over the world.
Got it. Okay. So for companies that have come through this since 2008, 2009?
2009.
2009.
2 years.
Can you tell us a little about some of them? What's happened to them since then? How many have gone on to be successful?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about them?
Actually, I'll highlight some of the ones that were here this past week because we invited back some of the people who had won in 2010. So I mentioned Streetline.
Yes.
Zia Yusuf was the CEO of the company who won the global event, so the finals like we had last week, but the year before. And they do a parking solution, smart parking. They help cities manage parking as an asset, and they also help you find parking and reduce emissions and not argue with your wife, as Zia says. I didn't make that up. And then Care Cloud is doing, patient care with small physician practices, real collaborative care where the care is coordinated, and they're using an IBM cloud for that. Ashifi Gogo, who runs Sproxel, won in Boston in 2010, and he does the most amazing thing. If you're in Africa and you buy pharmaceuticals, let's say you buy a blister pack of drugs for your heart, they put a barcode on the back of it, and they have a short text SMS number that you can call, and that goes straight to the pharma company that made that drug. You scan in the code on your drugs, and they tell you if it's genuine or not. Knocking out fraud.
Yeah.
Knocking out fraud. And actually, it's a problem not just in Africa, but that's their first markets, and they're expanding really fast. So we had those three CEOs, Albert Santalo from Care Cloud, Zia Yusuf from Streetline, and Ashifi Gogo from Sproxel. They came to the master class and coached this year's finalists, and they were in those mentor sessions that you were
in. And Ashifi was on mine.
Cool.
Very smart.
Yes.
And the application,
he had a whole profile on the FT, which impressed me greatly because I get the FT, and I opened it up one day a few months ago, and I'm like, "There's Ashifi, good for him."
I thought he was very very thoughtful, very insightful, and when you're in Silicon Valley and you've got so much going on here, it's very easy to become insular.
Yes.
That things only happen here.
That's right. So he was from Boston and working in Africa. And the other thing I liked about having him at this event last week is that his company was at about the same stage of development as these guys were. Early stage, not a lot of customers, in one market, trying stuff out, trying to refine the product, and the people you met were doing the same thing. So I thought having him now be very successful in lots of more markets, doing well, got venture funding, I thought that was a great example for these guys. And
most people based here would not have thought of Africa as a market, wouldn't even have perceived the problem.
It's remote.
That needed fixing.
Yes.
But in fact, it's a very real problem. It's a terrific thing to be doing it for the people that need to get the drugs and make sure they're the right drugs. But it's also, he can make a decent business from it too. So it's a complete win-win thing. It is a smarter thing to be doing.
Yeah.
And what I was seeing with all the teams were their different views of the world based upon where they were from.
Yeah.
Which is really eye-opening.
Yeah. One of the finalists was from Romania.
Yep.
You know, one was from Rio. I mean, they were from all over the place, and they were very different kinds of people, but they were all entrepreneurs, and they share something, you know, in the way they think about how to build a business, and they're surprisingly, to me, not wildly different in some ways. They're really not.
Well, no, because they're all very passionate about what they're doing.
Yes.
They've all identified very real problems.
Yes.
They want to go after. I loved the one on the team that was focusing on how to make bricks and mortar shelf spacing.
Yes, that was the guy from Brazil.
Yeah,
that was so fascinating.
Who would think of that? You know, it's all going online now.
Yes.
Said, no, this is really interesting. You know,
IDXP from Brazil, Gustavo Lemos, the CEO, thought it used to be all the advantage was in the brick and mortar stores. Now, the people who can really use analytics and do the analysis of what customers are doing, what they clicked on, what page they went to, what they looked at, it's all online. So what's the guy in the grocery store supposed to do? What do they get? And so he started thinking about how to help them. I thought that was very clever.
And built this very smart system that he can help people analyze what people are doing, in the store, which I thought was very, very smart, over and above what you can read from the till. So
we had people vote online for their favorite company, and he won the most votes online.
I can see the reason why. It was very thoughtful.
It was very appealing and very practical.
Very, very practical, very smart. You went, I get that. I understand the application. It just makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's really good. So some very smart people. So you said there's some of the companies that have come through SmartCamp are now partnering with IBM on programs.
Yes, that's right.
So what's happened with those? Can you give some examples of some of
sure.
them?
Well, Streetline is probably our best example because we've been working with them now since they won last November. So we had a year, a year to spend time with them. That first, we introduced them to the guy who runs our public sector business and runs Smart Cities, Jerry Mooney, who, by the way, was the first head of the venture group in IBM. So he gets it about what it's like to work with entrepreneurs, and very open. You have a lot of IBM executives, including my management chain, who really appreciate working with entrepreneurs. They get it. Okay. They really get it. And so we introduced him, and they started thinking about, what cities would be amenable to trying a parking solution. And this was something new for IBM. We didn't have one. So it's a new solution area for us. We were certainly doing intelligent transportation, but we didn't have anything like that. Then they started thinking about, how they could make their solution more robust, and they started talking to our Cognos product people. And then the Cognos people built a demo with their stuff. Then they all together built a starter kit that you could take to the cities. Right. And then we started bidding together with them, and it grows from one thing to the next. And I think one of the things that's true of all of these companies is it takes a certain type of thought process for somebody to make a very good business partner. You can't be too arrogant, but you have to be confident. You have to be collaborative, but you also have to know what you're doing and stand up for yourself. It's a nice balance if you can get it right. And the companies we've been working with so far have got it right. He particularly got it right.
We were talking about this prior to this recording session about the value of connections, and it's come up during what. Tell me a little bit more about what you see as the value of the connections that you bring to these companies, and your theory of connecting anyway. Yes. I'd be interested in your insights on that.
Well, certainly they've had a connection to some senior IBM executives. Even following the event last week, we've got a call set up for the winner, Profitero, and we've got a call set up for the company from Israel, CB4, whose biggest clients are in retail. So we've got him talking to our retail execs, I think next week, very soon. And so there's this connection with people in IBM, you know, not me standing in front of this, but people who are building products, talking to clients, you know, doing business. We've got connections for them so that they can start to think about joint clients that they can approach together. Right. Everybody makes more money when you do that.
Yep.
And they certainly get a lift. They're young, and so they need that help on go-to-market. We can certainly give them technical assistance, too. They get software. They get, you know, help from the product teams. But what they really need is this connection with clients.
And that's way more valuable than money you could throw them.
Well, exactly. That's why we don't invest. I mean, we don't need to. We have other things that are more valuable for them. Yeah. And then this connection, you know, through the mentor sessions and through meeting people like you and, you know, the other people in the various events, because we had mentor groups like that, similar caliber in different places. You know, a number of these companies have since been funded.
Wow.
So Streetline was funded after the event. Actually, Streetline met Rockport Capital at an SVForum investor forum. That was the SVForum prize for the Smart Camp winner, was a guaranteed spot at the next investor forum.
Right.
Zia went. Victor Westerlund was in the audience.
Oh, that's terrific.
You know,
that's a brilliant
story.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Terrific.
So that's a very concrete example.
Yeah. Yeah. Outstanding.
Yeah.
So we were also talking a little bit about how you got to be in the role that you're in.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey from how you got here? Because it's interesting. Because lots of people would love to be doing what you're doing,
I know,
but don't know how to do it.
No,
and don't know how to get there.
Well, they won't get to it the way I did, probably.
Okay.
I started out as a cognitive psychologist.
What does that mean?
Well, it means you study how people think and learn and behave. It's how the brain works, but it's also how you perceive the environment, what you look at, what you pay attention to, how you learn to speak, what role language plays. So I, you know, as a minor in linguistics and in biology and just learned how people think. So it's not about being a shrink and trying to diagnose your problems and, you know, help you, you know, handle your marriage better. It's about figuring out how human beings do what they do. Okay. So that's what it was. And I got into tech by having a connection to some technology companies where, like AT&T or General Electric, where it was important to understand clients and explain to software engineers how people actually use their stuff. So I was a designer.
All right.
Because I understood how people operate. And then, you know, business development, marketing, product marketing, you're working with clients, you understand how people think, you're doing design work. I got to IBM and did a stint in headquarters, and everyone realized that venture is about relationships. I don't think all corporate venture people realize that it's about the internal relationships as well. So I had done a year at headquarters. I knew lots of people in the software business and other senior executives outside the software business, like let's say in global services or in sales. And I lived in Silicon Valley, so I had connections here too. So when they were building up the venture group, they thought, here's a software executive. She could be in the software business, has all these connections. You put the outside and the inside together, you can be much more successful. Because, you know, I said that Streetline, for example, or some of the other companies, you know, have gone through the Smart Camp program, have started to work with IBM. How could I get that done if I didn't know the IBM people?
So again, it comes back to
it's still the network.
Connections. It's still the network. No, this is hugely important. And it's certainly something that I found in Silicon Valley it's your value multiplies, and the value of your network is just huge depending on the network. So how is the Smart Camp program going to develop in coming years? Where do you see this going now? Because you're bringing in, was it 6 or 10 companies every year? How do you see this growing in the next several years?
Well, it about killed us to do 9 of them last year, so we won't do 9 again in 1 year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was difficult. Even though we had local teams around the world doing the bulk of the work, it was still an awful lot for a small team to hold together. So we will do them. We will continue to do emerging markets plus the U.S. and some major markets. So we'll continue to do that. But I think we'll start to think about how you can pull people together from a region like we did in Istanbul. We didn't start out thinking that that's what we would do, but you know, the finalists were from Turkey, from Romania, from Egypt.
Yeah.
The guy from
Yeah.
Egypt got the
Yeah.
People's Choice Award there, a company called eMastery
Right.
that does micro payments.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think that ability to draw from a region
Mm-hmm.
and to really act as a hub for something is important. So we're starting to think about how to maximize the use of people's time and energy and bring people together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you haven't quite decided exactly how to do that, so you'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
But I'll invite you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Let's look at a little bit different area. The venture capital industry overall in the US has been contracting down.
Yes.
But in recent years, and certainly in the last few months or so, seems to be a growth in the number of corporate venture capital.
Absolutely true.
Can you tell us a little bit about why that is? What's happening there?
I just went to a corporate venture function in Newport Beach.
Okay.
There's a conference every year there, and I hadn't gone for a while, and this time I was invited to go see it. And I was shocked at the companies that had corporate venture groups. I mean, incredible number, and I think more than in the past had our model. They're not investing directly in startups.
Ah, okay.
It's a strategic function, a relationship function. They're looking, for a lift to the business. I mean, for us, it was done for growth businesses. That's why we have the Smarter Planet initiative with Smart Camp. That's the growth business. And so I think they're starting to do the same thing and thinking about a lot of the same companies, and maybe sometimes even in the same group, have an innovation officer. So you've got the innovation officer, you've got the person who's responsible for incubations inside, you have the person who's responsible for corporate venture. These things tend to converge. And I think that what's happened is that people are looking at collaborative innovation and ways at looking for things outside their own business in kind of non-traditional ways. And they can see other people being successful doing it. We're successful, but we're not the only ones. And so I think they have these examples in front of them and have started to adopt that model. Some of the firms that had purely financial models, and there's some that still do, but some of the ones that did that in the early 2000s have disbanded.
Okay. I'm now getting a signal we have to wrap it up, unfortunately, so we're out of time.
Darn, that was so fun.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you very much for coming along. Very much appreciate it, Deborah. Appreciate all your insights. So it's good night from me, Chris Gill, and hope to see you again next month.